for the UNX News. Extraterrestrials, time anomalies, dimensions, remote viewing, UFOs, UAPs, and USOs, ghostly encounters, abductions, Bigfoot, and more. Your end of the week news source for everything unexplained. Here is your host for the UNX News Podcast, Margie K.
Hello and welcome to UNX News. I'm your host, Margie K, and we're here on the KUNX Digital Broadcasting Network every Friday evening at 6 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. Eastern. Welcome to the program this evening. I have a very special guest tonight, so this is going to be so much fun. I want you to stay tuned. Join us in the chat. If you are listening on any of our radio apps, you might consider going over to the YouTube channel and clicking on that right there where we are live right now, because you're going to want to see Jamie and see a few things that we've got for you. Jamie Vos Love is an internationally renowned psychic medium, channeler, activator, and ET experiencer. She's a mentor. She's appeared in several guest speaking events. She's a go-to guide for visionary leaders shaping the future. Jamie supports raising consciousness, uniting starseeds, and gift expansion. She's the creator of the Starseed Ascension Collective, author of 15 Sacred Ceremonies with Ayahuasca and Our Song is Love. Jamie has been a medium on Busy Phillips, is doing her best, mentioned on the Las Culturistas, there we are, and Ghosted podcasts. And she was a Starseed ET panel speaker at the Los Angeles Conscious Life Expo. She's also a MUFON member and a founding ET member of the Hollywood Disclosure Alliance. Welcome to the program, Jamie.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
So good to see you. And yes, we are fellow members of the Hollywood Disclosure Alliance. So that's very exciting. Coming
Absolutely.
up, lots of good things. Jamie, it looks like you have experienced just about everything. So when did this all start for you that you might consider to be a little bit out of the norm? Sure.
Well, looking back, I would say it started at a pretty young age, and I had some experiences in the paranormal. That would be when my great-grandmother had passed away, when my mom was trying to explain death to me at an early age. And I didn't understand that because I was still communicating with her. And then another incident that sort of sticks out to me is I was raised Catholic. And so a lot of the stuff was sort of forbidden to speak of, within the family, within the church. And and so I was in these classes that you take for the Catholic religion called CCD classes. And at a young age, I remember our teacher was asking, has anyone experienced death in their family? And that was supposed to be a topic. And so at that point, my channel was open at that young of an age, but I didn't understand it. And Queen Elizabeth I came through my channel, and she's like, I'm here. And I'm just having this conversation, in my telepathic abilities, and wondering, okay, why is this person talking to me? And is she even alive? And I didn't know because I was so young. And so I raised my hand when it was my turn. And instead of saying like somebody close to you that had died, I said, is Queen Elizabeth still alive? Because I didn't know if I should answer the question that way. And the whole class laughed. I was kicked out of class for disrupting. And
Oh, oh my.
yeah. So what's that?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
can imagine that. Yes.
Yeah. So that wasn't well received. They thought it was kind of just distracting the class, as I said. And so, as a little, I don't want to say ashamed, but I sort of like shut that down because I didn't really understand what that meant. But I will say that later on in my journey, because I teach intuitive development now and mediumship and remote viewing, that inspired a game we like to call Are They Dead or Are They Alive? So we actually take photos and we practice that way, right? So we either
Ah.
create a channel if they have transitioned and open channel communication and deliver messages to loved ones, and if they are still alive, we kind of remote view and tap into them and share anything that we might want to discover. So it became a tool to practice. So yeah, there were other examples, I would say, of seeing spirits, and again, not really fully comprehending it. And then I would say I shut that down for a while as I sort of learned with programming that wasn't something to talk about. So it was later on in my journey that sort of came back and opened up again for me.
Well, that's good because I do know some people who had these abilities at a young age, and then they were basically shut down by their parents or uh, people who were in authority, teachers or ministers, things like that, and they didn't get it back. So you're one of the lucky ones.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I feel lucky. I know since I've gone deeper into my journey, there have been other memories that have come up. For instance, there's a questionable one where I would sleepwalk at an early age, and I actually speak in another language before I would go on this sort of sleepwalking journey to the door to our outside. And I would want to go outside and look up to the stars. So I don't know what I was like, who I was trying to communicate with, but I know that it became so often that my dad had to put a special lock on the door to prevent me from going out there. So there were other examples like that I feel like that was more connected to the galactic communications that again came forward at a later date for me.
Hmm. When was your first extraterrestrial encounter?
Sure. Okay. So that was in February of 2018. And I had prior to that, in 2009, I had an awakening experience, I would describe it as, where I was sort of overcome with energies that are often described in a near-death experience: unconditional love, forgiveness of myself and others, no pain in the body, no suffering. And it was just like a wave of all of this, a connection to everyone, nature. And that was very important for me, because what that demonstrated would be a sort of a glimpse, I feel like, of the energies and the higher consciousness that we're evolving to. But what happened was that sort of led me into this in-between space of what we call the dark night of the soul, and going through all of that healing and so on and so forth. And then so 2018 sort of had this reawakening where my energy just shifted and it opened up. And I would say that the loved ones from the other side and ones I didn't know, I started becoming a ghost assistant, I would say, in delivering messages that way. And then shortly after, the ET experience followed. Okay, so my ET experience was with an Andromedan being, which I later found out that's who I was, or that was a star system that it was connected to. But at the time, how can I describe this? Because of the programming and because of that fogginess and Val that was, layered on me, only to awaken later, I had some fear around the extraterrestrial space prior to that. So when this happened, I felt no fear. I felt calm. I felt peace. I felt loved. And what happened was this being appeared in my place, in my home, almost like you would kind of imagine a beam of light just coming in that entity appearing. Now, this Andromedan I didn't know that's what it was at the time, but bluish skin, humanoid features, bald, and at first I thought it was a male. I think I just assumed it because the being was bald. Later found out it was female, and later found out it was a guy that was with me for most of my life. But what happened in this experience is the being, which I call Patu, just wanted to get me familiar with the energy and not startle me. And there is, I don't want to say it was kind of telepathic, but it was more image projections and showing everything is okay. This is a part of the journey. More information will come. And so it started like that. I was very confused. And then the being appeared again later that night, and it would just kind of just be by me in my presence. And again, and just show everything's okay. There's nothing to fear. It's calm. And so what happened was I was working back at that time in a corporate space. And I went to work the next day, and I couldn't stop thinking about it. I was like, what in the heck was that, experience? And I just heard so clearly, Andromedan. We are the Andromedans. And I didn't know what that meant. So I had to later sort of understand what that being was. And when I understood that, it opened the door to my channel in the galactic space, and so much more information sort of streamed through, connected to just mission and why, deeper reasons of why that presence was there, and my role and what I was supposed to do, why I was here, and all of that. So it was a very beautiful experience, the first one.
That's very exciting. I've had some similar experiences, and you just cannot explain to people what that experience is like. You realize that there's so much more to this world than we take for granted, than we normally experience in our 3D, everyday, mundane world with work and school and family. And we just get so busy with all of that stuff. How do you balance your spiritual life with your everyday busy life?
Oh my goodness. As I go deeper into the journey, I find that the 3D world and tasks, it's very challenging for me to commit time to that, but I know it has to be done. I have a partner, and I have, I would say I balance some energies, in addition to my star fam. There are friends that are super anchored and grounded into earth energy, and that kind of helps me just balance the energies to make sure I'm not always kind of floating off into into the other world. But yeah, it's I try to do techniques, and I channel every day and sort of meditate. And so to not be super overwhelmed, I ask, what are the most important tasks that I need to get done today? And I find that by setting the intention to really minimize that, then not as much as before shows up in my world. So I've been kind of lucky to kind of minimize that as much as possible.
Well, that's good. And I think that meditating every day is, I mean, that's one of the things that I teach as well, that is a key component to having these communications with interdimensional beings. Um, Definitely meditation. So I totally agree with you on that. Can you tell us a little bit about your book, 15 Sacred Ceremonies with Ayahuasca? I hope I pronounced that correctly.
Sure, sure, absolutely. So that was inspired because it the messages that come through, I mean, they come through at high speeds. And part of my challenge has always been, okay, what do I share? What do I not share? What's for me? What's for the collective? And I felt inspired to get my story out because I know that many people struggle with some of the things that go on with the healing journey, and just wanted to share that it's okay, and to encourage people to work with their gifts and to show that they can really shift their realities, and just to speak to some of the experiences about that personal journey and how it happened. And then the other purpose to that is I get strong guidance from the galactics all of the time that they know that it's tough, being here on Earth. It's no
Mhm.
easy feat. So they want, many of my messages are geared toward hope and raising consciousness and sort of the aftermath of where we're headed, and just that it really is worth it. And to sort of bring your home frequency to Earth. And so, yeah, I just kind of go into because what we find with Starseeds, and I know it's many people as well, is that you have such a high vibration, right? Prior to this incarnation, you come into Earth, and often there's a lot of trauma or not understanding, where is this place? Why am I here? Why does it operate on this level? I have a desire to be home, and you go through the trauma and healing that. And so just encouragement around how can we support that healing, and how a lot of it is an inside journey and begins with us. So
Mhm.
the gifts and abilities happen prior to the ayahuasca ceremonies, but that was just something that was so transformational in my life to sort of put all of these pieces that came through, in sort of fragments together, and help me understand those deeper parts of myself and where I came from.
Yeah, I think a lot of people have experienced the same thing. And when you're in it, when you're in the trauma phase, when you first come in, uh, to this lifetime, it people find it very difficult to understand. But once they wake up, they have a completely different point of view about the whole
Yes.
situation. So, would you say that that's pretty common?
100%. We often talk about it. I have, some groups and community that have gone through, that process, and we sort of speak about before and after. And sometimes we look back, and, we're all, thrilled to be awakened to play these roles. But, it's, yeah, it's a journey to take that leap. And once you do, you can't undo or unsee the way that, the way that you now see the world. It's hard to like go back to that old lens. Um, so
Yeah,
yeah, definitely see that.
I think that's a good way of putting it. You can't go back, really.
No,
Um,
it's
so,
hard.
how difficult do you find it to still deal with maybe family members, friends, coworkers, things like that, who have they're not awake yet? Is that difficult for you?
I would say it was during parts of the journey. And the last few years have been very instrumental in showing me, I call it the diamond perspective. So seeing things from all different perceptions and a lens of love, but different angles. So for instance, there may be a truth that no longer resonates with me. But because I was once there in my journey, because I was once veiled and I wasn't awakened at a certain time, I have compassion. So that compassion grew over time going through this process. And my guides made sure that anything I could ever potentially judge somebody for, that I need to look within myself and try to have that compassion for others. So yes, it has been challenging, but that has definitely shifted pretty big time for me. And I do believe that it's not our role to push people through their process or tell them how to do it. Yeah. But just to kind of focus on ourselves and then be in service in the ways that we're guided, that more empower people, right, to make that shift. And finally, the last thing I'll say with that is I'm noticing, and I'm sure you are as well, is as we're accelerating through this process, we keep seeing bigger waves of the awakening happening. So it's happening sort of in shifts, but more and more people, are moving through their process. So we still have a ways to go, but. For some reason I lost.
Yeah,
Yep.
You got ahead of me a little bit there. I was going to ask you about this because I've been noticing that there are a lot more people who are waking up at it recently. It seems like it's sped up and there's more of it. And the people who are new to it are questioning a lot of things and they just want answers. They're just seeking knowledge. And it's really nice to see. You were talking about vibration earlier and how we all maintain a vibration. You get to a certain point, and this is, consciousness level, at a certain vibratory rate. Do you find that your vibration is going up more quickly than it used to in the past, let's say the last couple of years?
Yes. So it's pretty interesting because I have started feeling the vibrational shifts, not understanding when it first started what it was, because the information on the awakening that you can find so much out there right now, I couldn't figure out how to access that back then. So I felt, am I going crazy? Like, what is happening to my body? I'm going through all these shifts. Mm-hmm. But what I found out was that it sort of put me in the prime position at the right time to start. I work with people that are also working with their gifts and developing them, and then kind of like going out there and helping others. And so I feel that the level of acceleration, as you asked, has sped up in the last 2 to 3 years at a way faster rate than it did to begin with. Yeah.
No, it's not surprising that you're experiencing that. We are up on a break, so we're going to take a short break. We'll be back right after these messages. Don't go away. Are you thinking about purchasing a wood-fired heating or cooking appliance but don't know where to start? The new book, Wood-Fired Heating and Cooking, will guide you through the process and make the decision much easier. Find out about wood stoves, wood-burning fireplace inserts, masonry heaters, cook stoves, brick ovens, and more. Learn about operation and maintenance, buying and storing wood, even how to make your own charcoal. A bonus section includes delicious recipes for cooking in a wood-burning oven, grill, tandoori oven, or smoker. The wise homeowner, prepper, or homesteader will have the ability to heat their home with wood when the power goes out or to save money on increasing gas bills. Wood-fired heating and cooking is available at Amazon. Visit www.woodfiredpub.com for more information. That's woodfiredpub.com. And we're back with the next news. I'm your host, Margie Kay, and thank you for joining me this evening. I have a special guest, Jamie Vos Love, is with us this evening, and we are talking about her very special experiences. Jamie, you had an out-of-body experience. What was that like?
Yes. So that actually was very recent. It was in February of this year. And I had been driving my car up a mountain, and it was a place that I traveled to fairly often. I worked with some folks there, and I was running late for a client session, and I had alerted them, sent them a message to let them know I would be late. And I was almost there. I was a little bit icy on the road, and I lost control of my car. So I was in a Jeep, and I can remember I flipped my Jeep down the mountain, and I actually rolled. And at first I thought it was 3 times because I was feeling each turn as separate, but it was just really one roll down the mountain. And then I hit a tree upon impact. And during that experience, it was, I have to say it was peaceful, because I felt like I was in this bubble of light and completely protected. There was my dad, I could feel my dad's presence. There was a mantis being that, and a guide that often shows up. So I felt very protected. Now, what happened was there's lost time for about 10 minutes. They say my heart stopped briefly. And so in that time, I sort of had this out of body experience, not near death. It's sort of what they describe when they don't go fully right over and cross over. But this out of body experience allowed me to sort of, it's kind of like hovering over your body, but more so there was just this instant knowing of what led up to the car accident, why it happened, that everything was going to be okay. And so the other thing that came out of that was, I just call it an extended multidimensional perspective, meaning every time there's an event, so say that event, for example, there are other people's lives that impacts in different ways. And so after that accident, I was able to see just beyond sequence of events. So beyond these sequence of events in time, what that led to, and then expanded view of how that was impacting other people that were connected to maybe that one particular person. I don't know. That's the best. It's hard to articulate, that sort of expanded view. But ever since then, I can't unsee that. So it's changed the way I do if I'm doing readings. I feel like I expand much more beyond than I have in the past. But the experience with the mantis being was important to me because that mantis being said, we're going to do some work on you. And it did. And it was doing some, I just opened up to it, and I was feeling like this light wave come over me, and I felt good in my body. And I lost a significant amount of blood, but I walked away ultimately after going through a little shock from that accident with a scar, like just a cut on my right side and a cut on my hand, and that was it after rolling my Jeep down the mountain. So I had minimal damage to the body, and just miraculously was able to come out of that with
looks like somebody was definitely watching over you. And there to help.
And the healing was accelerated beyond belief.
That is an incredible story. That is awesome. Now, the mantis, I find that very interesting because I have a mantis guide as well. And I keep seeing mantis in my garden and everywhere. Does the same thing happen to you?
Yeah, so for me, they're a little bit more elusive because it's not, I don't see them all of the time, but when they come, it's like pretty big deal. They want to help. But they're a little bit more mysterious to me. So I loved, when you and I had spoken about your experiences, I was totally, totally intrigued because I love, hearing about the mantis. I wasn't able to go on the spaceship ride, but after that, I've put the request out there.
Now, what are some of your UFO experiences?
Yeah, so I've had a couple, I would say, and well, probably more than that, but like there was one time where I was I'm a brown belt ninja, and I was studying with my partner at the time. He was 6 foot, and he stepped on my ankle and crushed it. And there was a Palladian light ship overhead, I was told, but it felt like it was cloaked. And after and I had looked at my foot. I had sent a picture to my sister. It was really swollen and purple. And the Palladian sort of came in and broadcast this message about, don't you know, like we have the self-healing mechanism inside. And now I can't replicate that on command or anything like that. But I feel like as a humanity, we're evolving to these, self-healing capabilities. And so I looked at that, my ankle, and it was within less than 2 minutes, completely the swelling had gone down until it was like reverse injury, just healing instantly. And if I didn't have those 2 pictures time stamped and sent to my sister, I may have, looked back on that moment and questioned, did that really happen? So that was one, but my most profound, yeah, that was a big one for me. But with the UFO, my most profound one, because I've seen lights where I've had sort of a feeling like that those were UFOs, and sort of just strong kind of message about it. But they were lights, and I can't really definitively prove that. But what I can say is, again, this is this Idlewild place. I'm telling you, it's like a hub for UFOs activity. I was driving down the mountain. This was 2 years before my accident, same place. And I was looking, didn't realize I had my headlights off in my car. And this was at nighttime. And I looked up in the sky and I saw this huge ship, but my mind couldn't make sense of it at first because I was thinking, oh, that's a cool, really tall house that's on the mountain. And then I looked and I'm like, wait, that's not on the mountain. That's like floating over the edge of the mountain. And it was
Mhm.
maybe only 100 feet up. So it was really cool. And this particular craft, I mean, it felt like a mothership. This thing was huge, and it actually had windows, which sort of surprised me, like little circular windows. I wasn't expecting that, and I think that's why I thought it was like some kind of house, and why my mind was trying to make sense of it. But it was definitely a craft. It was partially cloaked. It was huge. It was only 100 feet up, and I drove by and it was almost like what you would normally logically want to do, like take a photo or stop, and be like, what the heck is that? All of that just like erased from my brain. And I just kept going. And I was thinking, well, maybe I should pull around the corner. There's nowhere to stop. I'm on a road. My headlights, I just realized, are off. And all of this in like very quick time was going through my head. So I turned around to come back. When I came back, that was gone. But I know I was meant to see it. Yeah. And they
Yeah.
had told me before, they're like, there will be a craft. And I sort of had forgotten about it, lost it out of my mind. But that was a time that I have zero doubt. I open eyes, completely just, yeah. Not expecting it, but that definitely happened and it was incredible.
And you were alone at the time, right?
Oh, I was alone. I called my friend
Yeah.
immediately after I'd driven back and it was gone. I was like, damn it. I really wanted to connect with whatever that was. I want to know more. And I called my friend and I was like, oh my gosh, and I described all of the details. I wrote down as much as I could. I drew, what it looked like. And I was so excited about it.
Do you think that these higher vibration beings reveal certain things to people as they are ready for it?
Yes, 100%. 100%. So, whether that's just some kind of contractual time, or exactly how that works with the timing, it seems to be connected to they are ready to go on to maybe this next part of their journey, and to just offer that belief, because I find, and this from sharing experiences, if we're speaking to people that maybe haven't had that or haven't had any kind of these spiritual transformative experiences, then it can be hard to understand that. And so as somebody goes upon their journey, I feel like when they see a craft, it's definitely they were meant to see it, so they can help assist in whatever role they're playing.
Yeah. How do you know where your ET guides are from? Do they tell you?
Yes. So, like I said, Andromedan is sort of my home base, and this was a little bit later on in my journey after they kind of like reintroduced themselves, and then I found out, oh, that guide was with me my whole life, but I just didn't realize it, because I had blocked out some of those memories. And that sort of opened that gateway. So what I find is that over time, other groups started to introduce themselves to me. And I think that's because Andromedan energy, they're sort of the peacekeepers, and they work with many different galactic races. And I find that I do that here, with whether it's starseeds or guides. And what I found was, as I went through my journey and they slowly introduce themselves, then I could recognize that energy signature, if that makes sense. So like when they
Yes, it
come in
does.
later, yes, then
I
it's
know
like,
what
so
you
at
mean.
first I was like, what's that?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, cause like Arcturians, when they came, I remember just laying there. And so what would happen was when this first started, I would get a buzzing noise in my ear, like a ee, and then my ears would get really hot. And then I knew, go grab a pen and a paper, there's something coming through. But like Arcturians, for example, they were showing me the Boots constellation or something that looked like a kite constellation. And they would give me like little fragments so I can kind of understand. And then, and that's how it started, because I wouldn't have known if somebody just came in and saying, we're the Arcturian Council, at the time. Later I understood because they gave more and more information, but they started with that base and they said, here is kind of our energy signature. And so, yeah, over time, recognize it that way.
Do you find, do they help you in discerning things when you're working with clients? Do they pop in and help you out with that?
Yes, very frequently. And even when I was doing mediumship, I started finding that I was doing, these readings, and previously they had, in the beginnings, it was just messages, it felt like to me, and then later collective messages. But then they started showing up in my readings, and it was a little bit, that was a journey for me as well, because I didn't know, okay, are these people open to it, and I had to go overcome that. But yes, they definitely come in and share messages, as do angels and loved ones from the other side, but they sort of all work together because they all want to help us and assist us.
Yeah, I've seen the same sort of thing. They do work together. It seems to be have to do with vibration as well. The if they work together, that they're on the same vibratory rate. Um, how often do you do readings for people?
Almost daily. It's pretty frequently, and it's interesting because I like I said, I teach intuitive development. I interview people, I bring in other teachers. I have that sort of the business. I do mentorship. But the readings I've asked, I said, keep asking my guides, do you want me to still, do solo readings? And they're like, yes, you are not ready to stop those yet. And so I just kind of, follow my sacred marching orders. But what I am finding is connected with that is when I first started sort of slowly introducing, different galactic energies and their messages and readings, it was very much, maybe like what we would consider a soft disclosure, or kind of priming and just sharing, you can take this message if it feels good, but here's what's coming through. Now it seems like more people are ready. They're starting to have these experiences and they want to know more, like what is going on, right? This
Yeah.
is starting to really come up right now at an accelerated rate, but more and more people are waking up to that. And so I think that's also a role, or part of the reason, I would say, in keeping the readings open.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, let's shift gears a bit because you mentioned to me that you've had some paranormal experiences. What would be one of your most memorable?
Sure. So, there's so many. I really have a fond memory of this this lady. Her name was Bridget, and it was one of my first experiences when those abilities reopen. And she was a friend of a friend's aunt, and so all I knew was, hey, like, I would get woken up at all hours of the night, and she said, my name is Bridget, and she said, Pepsi, Gatorade, Patch Adams, the number 3, and Pinnacle. And so that did not mean anything to me. But she said, give this message to your friend Jess. She will know who to give it to, and just trust it. And so for me, again, didn't mean anything to me. So I just had to trust that. I gave them the message, and I found out that apparently she worked with Pepsi and Gatorade. Patch Adams was one of the movies they had watched right before she transitioned, so it was meaningful to get that to her family. The 3 were the 3 folks in her family, and the Pinnacle had to do with some baseball cards or something like that. That was a significant memory with her. And so the next day after the message was delivered, she said, please share this with Jamie. And it was a picture of her aunt before she passed, and there was a Gatorade bottle at the table. And so every single one of those messages were very specific and definable to her. So there was that. And I share that because, again, I felt so, it brought me joy. It was one of my first moments I remember of bringing so much joy to be able to be in service and share those messages. And it made me, want to do what I do. And then, but I would say like a magical one was, I was doing a reading, and I was like, okay, this is going to be so weird, but I have to share this porcupine. And it was just so bizarre, it felt like. And, the girl she was just like, oh my gosh. And I was like, okay, this is, and this is coming from your dad, is what I said. And she said, okay, you would have no way of knowing this, but my dad, when he was sick, he wanted to share a sign with me after he passed. And he said, I don't want it to be a bird or just a normal animal that you see all the time. And he said, so my sign's going to be a porcupine. So when I delivered that message, to her, that was very meaningful, and it was just something memorable that stuck out.
Oh yeah, that's very cool. It's a nice story. What about your personal experiences, say in your house? Do you have any paranormal things going on, things moving around, or noises you can't explain? You've seen spirits walk by. What's going on there? Because I'm picking something
all
up.
the time. Yeah. Okay. So you're probably behind. I don't know if you're going to be able to see it, but there is one of these pictures. It's the this. Well, I don't know if I can point to it or not, but up above my head, the one, it's sort of crooked. It's the smallest one right over there.
Okay.
There is a ghost in this house, and we don't know who these pictures are. They just were part of somebody's family way back then. Every morning before I come in here, this is where I do my work, they take the picture frame and they move it, and they want to get messages across. And so I will have objects move. I will have I see things with it started off either third eye or clairaudiently, but now I see with my regular eye. So you will see a light flash go across the room. And then I'm like, okay, please identify, please identify yourself and let me know what it is that you're looking for, because I find that spirit guides want to help you and support you. And not that ghosts don't either, but they usually have a request, right? They want you to do something for them. Yeah.
So yeah, they're hanging around for a reason. But you don't know the people in those photos.
I don't. So that's my next sort of task. I've just been observing it, but because usually I'm reading people that I sort of get the messages from the people that I'm, supposed to be servicing. So that's something I'm going to revisit and explore, because there's definitely activity going on in this house, and there's quite a few people that want to get the attention. I know some of them are family members, connected to my partner's family, but it happens.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, one last question because we're running out of time. What about your work with healing and plant medicine? How did you get into that?
Sure. So that was sort of another channeled thing. I mean, the guides kind of prep you for it. Back in January of 2008, I received a message about going to the Andes, and then I had written spirit guides and radio, and I didn't know what that meant at the time. And then a few months later, I found out, oh, there's a podcast called Spirit Guides Radio, and I happened to catch a podcast where they were saying, hey, there's this plant medicine called ayahuasca, and and here is some information about it. And it was Spirit Guides Radio, and it was in Peru, was the retreat. So I just knew I had to be there. And I'll be honest with you, I have been humbled over the years. Okay. So before I went into that, I was like, I've healed so much stuff. I'll just kind of go and see, like, maybe something cool will happen. But what I found was there was a lot more that I wasn't seeing or understanding that I had to move through. And so there are two parts to that. There was a healing process, and then there was a deeper understanding of some of these higher levels of consciousness, and really getting a deeper understanding of sort of visuals of galactic histories and lineages and all of these things, and that was very profound. But I will say, like, things that I had my blinders on too about myself. They say that in one ayahuasca ceremony, it's equivalent to 5 years of therapy or self-work. And so that expedited my process, and it almost felt like I needed to do that to be in the position I am now, to raise my vibration and to support others, because I had kind of walked that journey, and I can have compassion for, things that they went through. So very, very profound experience in my journey.
Sounds like it. And it sounds like you were definitely supposed to be there at that time.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
They had
awesome.
me on the fast track. They're like,
Yeah.
you need to drop this density now.
There you go. Okay. How can people get your book?
Okay, sure. Wonderful. It is on Amazon. You could look it up by the title. And I will say that I do have a free copy of it if you're interested in just an electronic copy on my website, JamieVossLove.com. And so either one of those, whatever you prefer, is good with me.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you so much for being on the program with me tonight. It was nice getting to know you better. I know I was on your show. We talked mostly about me. Now I really got to understand your journey, and it's just fascinating. Thank you so much, and keep up the good work.
Well, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. I enjoyed talking to you as well. And I hope we stay connected.
Oh, I'm sure we will. Thank you so much, Jamie. Well, this is Margie K. We have wrapped up yet another Friday evening. And unfortunately, the time goes by too quickly. But hope you'll keep joining me every Friday at 6 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. Eastern, right here on the KUNX Digital Broadcasting Network. See you next time.